Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on the very ugly and very public spat between two former leaders of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen and Tony Leon. Now let me just start off by saying that this is probably the biggest own goal by a political party in recent memory. And the reason that I say that is because we are literally 4 months away from the 2026 municipal elections. And here the DA is allowing these two former leaders to just completely annihilate one another in public, and they are dragging the DA's credibility down with them. So the first question, of course, is where's Geordin Hill-Lewis and why hasn't he stepped in to stop this? Well, maybe it's because nobody actually takes Geordin Hill-Lewis serious in the DA. Because I can tell you one thing for sure, when I was still part of the DA, if Helen Ziller was in charge and something like this happened, she would have stopped that immediately. But yeah, you've got two full-grown adults going on a very public platform, arguably the biggest in Africa, News 24, and sitting down with the editor-in-chief and skinnering about one another. They can't pick up the phone and have a proper disagreement in private. No, they have to now bring it into the public domain. And to an extent, I don't blame Tony Leon as much as I blame John Steenhuisen for this, because after all, John is the one that feels betrayed and that he did nothing wrong and threw Afri-MAGA people under the bus and in essence told conservative South African voters that they shouldn't vote for the DA because conservative people's values and beliefs don't align with that of the DA, which is quite ironic considering that the DA is welcoming open communists and socialists into their party, but conservatives, no, you are still too radical for us. So do with that whatever you want to. But Tony Leon could have decided to take the high road, but instead decided to go public and defend himself, which, like I said, I don't have a problem with that, but for the DA's sake, I think that this was a terrible move. Tony had to go and represent himself, or defend himself rather, against the accusations made with his company, because John Steenhuisen obviously came out and said some terrible things about Tony and the way that he runs his business. Now, for those of you that don't know, Tony Leon runs a very successful lobbying business called Resolve Communications. And I know South Africans aren't too familiar with lobbying, but it is pretty much accepted all across the world. It's when a company gets a client like Starlink, to negotiate and arrange meetings with people that can make decisions or can draft legislation. It's perfectly normal, and I can, to an extent, understand why some people are worried about it. And I know why mainstream media is making so much out of it, because they want to get clicks. But I don't really think that there's anything untowards about this. The issue here is that Tony Leon is still very much associated with the Democratic Alliance and the senior leadership within the party, and at the same time, he's running a business, which means that he's got access to the ministers from the DA. But there's no evidence yet of any wrongdoing, and I don't believe that Tony Leon is that type of person that would do something like that. So, believe it or not, yeah, I'm coming up for Tony Leon and the Democratic Alliance. I don't think that the ministers will do anything untoward. I don't think that Tony Leon did anything wrong here. The only thing that I will say that Tony Leon did wrong is that he decided to take the spat with John Steenhuisen public. And of course, Adrian Basson and News 24 is just sitting back and loving all of this. And as somebody that is in an opposition political party, I should look at this and also, go, ooh, well, nice. But I don't. I just think that it's so childish. And I think that, once again, the people that actually suffer are the voters and are the residents and the citizens of this country. Now, what I will say is I believe that Tony Leon made a massive mistake in going for this interview on News 24, in the same way that I think that John Steenhuisen made a massive mistake in going on that interview with Adrian Basson from News 24. Ultimately, we know that mainstream media is not really interested in the truth. They just want to get whatever is the most clickbaity title that they can go with in order to sell more advert space and to get more clicks on their website. So ultimately, once again, an idiotic move by two former leaders both that I respected, and now I'm just looking at them going, you're absolute idiots. Because politically, I know that you don't do something like this, and the fact that they can't put one and one together with regards to this, especially with us being 4 months away from an election, is just mind blowing. And yet, to this day, we are still waiting for Geordin Hill-Lewis to say anything in this regard. So, what is he in the back seat and Tony Leon and John Steenhuisen is in the front seat of the vehicle driving the car? I mean, I don't know. This is just something that is absolutely terrible for the Democratic Alliance, specifically when one of the former leaders comes out and pretty much tells a large chunk of their voters that they shouldn't vote for the DA because they don't share their values and principles. I mean, that is just absolutely absurd. And the fact that John Steenhuisen is still a deputy minister, despite all of these things that he said and all of the damage that he's caused for the DA. Now, let me say this, and I know that there are some DA people watching this, specifically people that are either still councillors, MPs, or MPLs. How's it, by the way? I do know that you watch my stuff, and it's fine. You can watch it secretly. Nobody will know. But the one thing that really gets to me is there are so many MPs, MPLs, councillors that have been disciplined and kicked out of the party because they brought the party into disrepute. And yet, here you've got a former leader that went onto one of the biggest platforms on African soil when it comes to news and told a large chunk of that political party's voter base that they don't share their values and principles with the party and they shouldn't vote for the DA. And yet the leader is silent. The leader has not come out and said anything. And in actual fact, the leader rewarded this person that didn't deliver when he was the minister with the deputy minister position. How does that work? I mean, talk about underperforming and then being rewarded with another cozy position. So, oh, you did a terrible job as the minister. Well, don't worry, we're going to put you in a deputy minister position. Remember, this is the same things that used to drive us crazy when we looked at the ANC doing it. And now that the DA is doing it, now everybody should just keep quiet and say nothing. I mean, it's objectively true that John Steenhuisen was a horrendous and terrible Minister of Agriculture. And instead of being completely fired out of the executive, Geordin Hill-Lewis and the DA decides, hey, here's a nice deputy minister position for you. And then the way that John Steenhuisen says, thank you very much for giving me a second chance, is to go onto the biggest mainstream media outlet on African soil and to shit on the DA. And of course, to shit on the DA voters. I mean, but listen, I just don't understand how after all of this, people will go, how dare you speak negatively about the DA? Listen, the DA is causing this themselves. I'm literally not exaggerating when I'm saying that every single thing over the last 3 weeks that has happened to the DA has been self-inflicted. And they will know that this is self-inflicted. So internally, the question has to be asked, what are people saying about Geordin Hill-Lewis's leadership in the sense that he can't speak to these two former leaders and just say, shut up and stop arguing in public? It's not hard. We are 4 months away from an election. Both of you are part of the DA. Both of you love the DA. And here you are costing the DA votes because of your egos. This is the conversation that needs to be had, but to this day, it doesn't seem that there's anything going on because, like I said, the Tony Leon interview just dropped, and some of the things that were said is quite horrendous. Let's have a look. Now, this article is brought to you by Newsday. Please go and follow them. I believe that they are the best in South Africa by just giving you the news without the editorial slant, whether it be leftist or right-leaning. It's just a great news organization. Please go and support them. Anyway, very ugly and disgraceful stuff about John Steenhuisen. And this is a quote, by the way. This isn't their opinion. Now, I just focused on some of the things. You can go and read the entire article. But as you can see here, former DA leader Tony Leon said there were many controversies about John Steenhuisen, including very ugly stuff which was disgraceful. Now, how's this person still a deputy minister if this is how one of the former leaders of the DA feels about John. Anyway, Steenhuisen claimed that Resolve Communications actively drove the relentless public narrative criticizing him and his chief of staff at the Department of Agriculture. He added that Resolve Communications regularly used its political proximity to the DA to approach him and other GNU cabinet ministers. That's a bold claim. He said he found this behavior highly concerning given how close the firm's leadership is to the DA itself. He flagged it internally to the party caucus as a major ethical risk. All of these things were disseminated publicly, on News 24's interviews. I mean, in the interview with Basson, Leon said he reached out to Steenhuisen on numerous occasions amid controversy surrounding the former DA leader. There were a lot of controversies about John. There was stuff about the credit card and various default judgments, very ugly stuff, he said. I thought it was disgraceful, and I told him that this being put in the public domain didn't belong there. Still, I sent him a message of support. Well, Tony, it's ironic that you say that when you also went public now. I'll just put that out there. He said that any attempts to reach out to Steenhuisen after the article were ignored. This included a letter linked to the leadership change at the DA. When all this stuff started about a potential change of leadership, I wrote him a very carefully worded, decent, nice, and friendly letter giving my views, he said. It was simply ignored. I didn't get so much as a thank you or a get stuffed. There was no response at all. And then John Steenhuisen is not a baby or a victim. I mean, he questioned Steenhuisen's accusations of being influenced and pressured into arranging or attending meetings with Resolve Communications clients. John is not a baby. John is not some victim. He is an adult. He is over 50. He's the leader of the second largest party in South Africa and a minister of state, he said. Yet, he says he felt uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable or pressured 100 times when I was the leader of the DA. This is Tony Leon. I faced pressure to do things, but I did them and took the consequences. I didn't complain about being put under pressure. He's now referring to what John said during his interview. It's called having agency. If you are a minister of state, you have to take a personal political agency for what you do and what you don't do. Now, do you understand what I'm saying, that this is kinderkak? This is something that should not be in the public domain, and a political party that's worth their salt will make sure that they keep these disagreements behind closed doors. But unfortunately, it seems that Geordin Hill-Lewis is not respected enough by Tony Leon or by John Steenhuisen, or respect the party enough to keep these things private. And that is where we are right now, where a lot of people are looking at the Democratic Alliance and going, why are you causing these self-inflicted wounds? I mean, you are literally giving voters on a silver platter to other political parties. And to be fair, I mean, this is something that I've been saying is going to come a long time ago, because I could see 2 years ago when what happened to me, that there was this shift within the high-ranking positions of the DA. I could see that there was this fight for the soul of the organization. You can call it leftists that want to take this party even further left, and then some centrists that just wanted to keep the party in the center, leaning left on some issues and leaning right on others. And unfortunately, from the looks of it, it looks like the leftist side clearly won, because you've got Geordin Hill-Lewis that is the leader, and you've got Geordin Hill-Lewis that in his speech, when he addressed the public, even mentioned the New York mayor, which is a very open socialist slash communist. And the fact that he's getting some inspiration from Mamdani is just really, really problematic, especially if you are somebody that look at ideology and decide if that is the party that you should vote for. So to conclude this video, let me just say that I don't think that DA ministers are corrupt. I don't think that Tony Leon is corrupt. I think actually that is something that mainstream media is trying to drive instead of focusing on the spat between Tony Leon and John Steenhuisen. But I do think that these two leaders or former leaders are causing havoc for the Democratic Alliance, and arguably more pain and suffering than any other political party has done to them, I would say, over the last 5 to 6 years. So self-inflicted, and unfortunately, because it doesn't seem that the people in high-ranking positions respect Geordin Hill-Lewis enough to consider him and the party, they will just run rampant and do whatever they do. So what? Maybe next week there'll be an interview by Adrian Basson with Geordin Hill-Lewis. You know, this is the rate at which the party is literally collapsing and causing massive damage to their reputation. But hey, you know, as somebody that was in the party, it's very sad to see. But as somebody that forms part of a conservative organization, political party that's on the rise, I can only say to all those voters that are leaving the DA and joining the Freedom Front Plus, welcome. You are home now. You are where you belong. A party that focuses on the people of South Africa, to put them first, and not to what some globalists are saying and what policies they would like to recommend and implement in this country. So if you have made the shift, welcome. If you haven't made the shift yet, well, we'll probably see you in a couple of months. Anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button, share this video far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free and it'll be greatly appreciated. Also, if you'd like to contribute financially to this channel, then you can do so. You can click on the super thanks button below and you can choose an amount and it'll be appreciated. Or you can become a member of this channel by clicking the join button, and that comes with its own perks. And you can see those perks by just clicking on the join button below. And that's all I got to say, everybody. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.